The letter said, "Deed history audit required." Donald thought it was routine. He was wrong.
It's just a paperwork check. I've owned this building for 30 years.
But something pulled at him. He set the letter down and walked to the old oak desk where he kept the building's original papers.
I haven't looked at these since the closing in '94. Why am I suddenly nervous?
He slid out the thick envelope, marked deed. The paper was yellowed, the fold lines deep. The top of the page read, "Quitclaim deed. Not a warranty deed, not a full title transfer."
That can't be right. I paid off the mortgage. I have the keys. I've been collecting rent for 3 decades.
He spread every page across the desk. A cold weight settled in his chest. The audit was no longer routine.
I need to go to the city records office first thing tomorrow.
That night, sleep never came. The quiet footstep of 30 years had just become a very loud question.
I need a full property history for this address. There's a city audit. He handed over the quitclaim deed.
Let me pull the record. This might take a minute.
The clerk's fingers stilled. He leaned closer to the screen, then looked up with a frown.
This property, there's a foreclosure in the chain, 1996. Your name drops off there.
Foreclosure. I was in a hospital bed for months that year. I couldn't have missed a payment.
The clerk turned the monitor. Bold letters. Foreclosure sale. Purchaser, Ellis Trust. Donald's stomach dropped.
Who is Ellis Trust? There has to be a person behind that name.
I can't give you that. Our records show only the legal entity. You'd need a court order.
30 years. I've been signing leases under a name I've never heard.
He walked out into the cold morning light, the paper still in his grip. Nothing was what it seemed. Back in his apartment, Donald sat at the desk where 30 years of rent receipts were kept. His mind drifted to 1995. The stroke had come without warning, right outside that same brownstone.
I was in a coma for days. When I woke, the world had moved on without me.
Rehabilitation took years. His body rebuilt slowly, but his finances were shattered.
The building was in default. I was sure I'd lose it. And then, somehow, I didn't.
He remembered a visitor during those long months, a quiet older man from the neighborhood.
Jason Ellis, his father's old friend. He'd stop by with a newspaper, never asking for anything, but that was just kindness. He was a retired postal worker, not a man who could buy a building.
But the gap in the records gnawed at him. He needed someone who could untangle legal knots. He called Keisha, an attorney he'd used years ago. If anyone could pierce a trust, it was her. 2 days later, Donald sat across from Keisha in her downtown office, the foreclosure report between them.
Keisha, I need you to look at this. The city says my deed is worthless.
Let's see. The chain of title is clear. The property was foreclosed in 1996, and the Ellis Trust purchased it.
But I've been maintaining it, leasing units, for 30 years. Doesn't that count for something?
Not legally, Donald. The trust listed you as operator, not owner. That means you've been an agent, not a title holder.
An agent. All this time, I was just collecting rent for someone else.
The trust can evict you, Donald, or sell the building out from under you. You have no legal claim.
Then find out who's behind it. Please. I need to know who I've been working for all these years.
I'll dig into the trust. It'll take a few days. Try to stay calm.
Donald left the office, the weight of the unknown pressing harder than any key he'd ever held. 3 days later, Keisha called with fragments of the trust's skeleton. Donald had barely eaten.
The Ellis Trust was created in March 1996, right after the foreclosure sale. That's no coincidence. The trustee was a man named Harold Carver, retired attorney. He specialized in quiet deals for private clients.
Can we talk to him? Does he know who put up the money?
He's in a nursing home now, but the beneficiary is sealed behind attorney-client privilege. I can't crack it.
Who would hide like this unless they meant me harm? A business rival from the 90s?
That evening, he walked through the brownstone hallway, seeing every tenant with new, searching eyes.
Mrs. Roberts, fixed income. The couple in 3B. They moved in 5 years ago. not them.
His gaze settled on the name at the bottom of the list. Jason Ellis, Unit 2B, always quiet, always on time.
But a retired postal worker, number, he couldn't have saved enough to buy a whole building. Impossible.
Donald sat in his usual armchair, the weight of a nursing home visit still settling in his chest. Harold Carver, the trustee, had given him a riddle.
He remembered the old lawyer's thin voice. The buyer wanted to help you without your knowledge. It was a favor.
Carver had refused to name the buyer, but as he drifted toward sleep, he let one sentence slip.
That old man cared about you, Donald. Then his eyes closed. That was it.
Donald replayed the words. Old man. Someone older than him. Someone from his past. He stood and walked to his desk. On the desk lay the brass ring of keys. The building's keys. He picked them up, turning them in his hand.
Who would have bought this place for me? Who could afford it?
He thought of his father's circle. Only a few were left. Men who'd known him since he was a boy.
Most are gone. But there's one, quiet all these years, always around.
He sat back down, the keys clinking. The answer felt terrifyingly close, yet he still couldn't see it. He pulled the tenant roster from the drawer again, smoothing the worn paper flat on the old desk.
A retired teacher, a young nurse, none of them fit old man from my father's time. But Jason, 86 years old, quiet, always there.
The name seemed to pulse on the page. Jason had paid his rent in full every month for 30 years.
Impossible. A postal worker couldn't have bought this building. I am chasing shadows, yet he visited me in the hospital when I couldn't even speak. Brought newspapers, never asked a thing.
The doubt twisted into something sharper. He needed to hear someone else's view of the man in 2B.
Mrs. Roberts has been here almost as long. She might know something I've missed.
He walked the short hallway to her door, rehearsing the casual tone he would need. He knocked softly. A question about the quiet tenant in 2B was about to crack open a 3-decade silence. The door opened to Mrs. Roberts, a white-haired woman who'd lived in the building since 1992.
Mrs. Roberts, just a quick check. You've known Jason in 2B a long time, haven't you?
She tilted her head, a knowing flicker in her eyes. Then she said something that stopped him cold.
He once told her I was a good man, who'd been through a lot, like he knew about the stroke.
Donald steadied his voice, asking if Jason had ever mentioned owning property or an outside income. She laughed at that. Jason? He's on a fixed income. Retired postal worker, through and through.
Fixed income, yet he knew my struggle. Something doesn't align.
He thanked her and walked back to his unit, the key ring heavy in his pocket. The pieces refused to fit. He reached for his phone, contacts open to Keisha's name. He needed something concrete.
Keisha, can you find the trust's mailing address? The one on file with the state. It might be the key.
He barely ate, barely slept. When the phone rang, he grabbed it on the first tone.
Donald, I found the mailing address. It's the building itself. Unit 2B.
Unit 2B. That's Jason's apartment. He's been paying rent to himself.
The words hung in the air like a verdict. Donald's legs gave out, and he sank onto the sofa.
Keisha, is this legal? A tenant can't also be the landlord without telling anyone.
If he's the settlor of the trust, yes, he can be tenant and owner. It's unusual but perfectly legal. Donald, do you know who lives in 2B?
He couldn't answer. He ended the call, the phone sliding to the cushion. He stood, his eyes drifting to the brass key ring by the door. The key to Unit 2B.
He'd lived beside a ghost of his own making. Now, he had to face him.
He sank onto the sofa, the weight of betrayal and confusion pressing on his chest like a stone. In the drawer of the old desk, beneath tax records, he found a thin photo album from the early 90s.
This one, 1993, my father and Jason, arms around each other, laughing on the stoop.
He stared at the image. Jason had been a part of his life since before the stroke. always in the background.
He was always there, fixing the handrail without saying a word, bringing soup when I couldn't cook.
The pattern was suddenly clear. A quiet man ensuring the building and its operator never fell apart.
He bought this place for me. But why like this? Why hide behind rent checks for 30 years?
Gratitude tangled with a sting of humiliation. He had been a secret charity case in his own building.
I can't sit here another minute. I need to hear the truth from his own mouth. Tonight.
He walked out into the dim hallway, the keys clinking softly, the door of 2B waiting at the end. The hallway stretched before him, the door of 2B, a quiet rectangle of amber light.
30 years of rent checks in that box, every month, an envelope with his name. Never a hint.
He paused outside, hearing the faint sound of a radio inside. A jazz station. Jason was home.
He was just a quiet tenant. But he owned my whole world without ever saying a word.
He raised his hand, the brass key cold in his palm. One knock would shatter 30 years of silence. He knocked twice, the sound sharp and final. The radio cut off. Footsteps approached.
What do I even say? I've been your tenant in my own life for 30 years.
The doorknob turned, a sliver of light widening as the door opened, and there stood Jason, calm as the day he'd moved in. No surprise, no fear. For a long moment, neither man spoke. The jazz on the radio was the only voice.
I wondered when you'd come, Donald. Please, come in.
Donald stepped inside, the warmth of the small apartment wrapping around him like a memory. They sat. A half-finished cup of tea rested on the table between them, steam still curling.
How do I ask this? Every question I prepared sounds like an accusation. Jason, the building. It's you, isn't it? The Ellis Trust. You've been the owner all along.
Jason folded his hands on his lap, his expression unchanging, the calm of a man who had waited for this moment for years.
Yes, Donald. I hoped you'd never need to know, but I knew someday you would.
No denial, no excuse. Just the truth, offered like a cup of tea.
The word hung in the air, a single grain of truth that opened the door to the past. Now the story had to start, the one that began the day Donald couldn't speak for himself.
How did this happen? When? I need to know everything.
Jason rose slowly, walked to a shelf, and picked up a small framed photo.
Your father and I were like brothers. When you had the stroke, I knew he'd never forgive me if I let this building fall. I had saved a lifetime. A postal worker has few expenses. I bought the building from the foreclosure trustee.
He handed the frame to Donald. The same picture from 1993, two men laughing on the stoop.
I kept you as operator so you'd have income and a home. I never wanted you to feel like a charity case.
He built a lie to protect my dignity, and I believed it for 30 years. But you paid me rent every month. That money was yours.
It was your money. You earned it. I only held the deed.
The weight of the gift settled over Donald like a second skin as the quiet room held its breath.
All those years, you paid rent to me, and I thought I was the one providing for you.
You were providing me with a home and a purpose. Don't you see that? And you were rebuilding your life. I saw that. Your father would have wanted someone to look out for you.
Tears welled in Donald's eyes, a mix of anger at himself and a gratitude he couldn't name.
Did you ever resent me for taking the credit for not knowing?
Jason let out a soft laugh, the kind that carries no bitterness.
Resent you? You are the most stubborn, dignified man I know. I couldn't let you lose this place.
Donald wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, the walls he'd built against this man finally crumbling.
He gave me 30 years of pride. All I gave him was a monthly envelope.
In that small room, something unbreakable finally shifted. The warmth in Jason's eyes dimmed slightly, replaced by a quiet gravity. He set his teacup down.
Donald, I am 86. I don't have many years left. There's something I need you to promise me.
Donald straightened, his own emotions settling into a respectful attention. The room felt smaller.
When I pass, the building goes to you. Legally, officially. It's always been yours in spirit. But I have one condition. 3 units must stay rent stabilized. For low-income elders. Forever.
The words hung between them, not as a demand, but as a final, sacred thread tying the building to its community.
A stipulation that would bind me forever. But it was never about the money for him. It was about the people. You've been thinking about this for 30 years, haven't you?
Every day. This building didn't just save you. It's a home for people like us. It needs to stay that way.
Donald sat back, the weight of the request pressing deeper than any rent check ever could. Donald looked around the small room, his gaze settling on the photograph of his father on Jason's shelf.
Every month, he wrote that check for 2B, his own money, returning to him, and he never once flinched. I thought I was the landlord, but you were the one taking care of everyone all along.
We both were. Donald, that's what this building is. A place where people look out for each other.
The words broke the last wall between them. Everything Donald had resented now felt like the highest compliment.
I'll do it, Jason. Not because you asked, but because you've already shown me what it means.
Jason's eyes glistened. He reached across the table, his hand trembling slightly with age and emotion. They shook hands, the grip firm, a pact sealed beyond any legal document.
This building isn't just walls, it's a promise, and I am going to keep it.
In the quiet of that small apartment, a new understanding took root. The lease of secrets was over. The tea grew cold, but neither man moved. For the first time in 30 years, they talked without walls.
Your father and I walked this entire borough as young men. He could never pass a stray dog without stopping.
They traded stories of the old neighborhood, of stoop games and jazz joints that no longer existed.
I never knew you sorted mail through blizzards and heat waves for 4 decades. That's a different kind of persistence.
It taught me that every envelope matters, including the one I dropped under your door every month.
For a moment, they were just 2 old friends, or perhaps what they'd always been, family. As Donald finally stood to leave, Jason rose with him, steadier than he had seemed in years.
I am proud of you, son.
Thank you, Dad.
No blood bound them, but that night, in that small apartment, they became father and son. Over the next few weeks, Donald and Jason met with Keisha to update every legal paper. The trust now named Donald as successor trustee. Jason's hands were steady as he passed over the original deed, the one he'd held alone for 30 years. Donald held the document, feeling the weight of a partnership forged in silence. A week later, they called the tenants together in the ground floor hallway. The whole building gathered.
Jason Ellis, your neighbor in 2B. He's the real owner of this building. He saved it from foreclosure when I couldn't.
I only want one thing. 3 units must always be for elderly residents, at a fair rent, even after I am gone.
An older tenant from 1A wiped her eyes. The woman who had laughed about Jason's fixed income now understood. A young nurse whispered her thanks. The hallway filled with quiet murmurs.
This wasn't just a building anymore. It was a family.
The brownstone felt different after that day. Warmer. Its walls finally knew the truth. A year later, winter found Jason in a hospital bed. His heart was failing. Donald visited every morning.
He still had that cardigan on the chair. Even here, he wanted to look like himself.
Donald, the building. You won't let them raise the rents on those 3 units, will you?
Never. They'll stay exactly as you wanted. I give you my word.
Jason's lips curved into a small smile. His eyes closed, and his grip relaxed. It was over. The funeral was small, held under gray winter skies. The building's tenants all came.
Jason Ellis was the quietest hero I ever knew. He saved this building and never asked for applause. He taught me that family isn't blood. It's a promise kept for 30 years.
Afterward, Donald sat in Jason's now empty apartment, the old armchair still holding his shape. The brownstone stood solid in the dusk, its purpose finally clear. A legacy built on quiet love. The years knitted together quietly. Donald ran the building like a watch, never missing a repair, never raising a rent beyond what was fair. He installed a small brass plaque by the stoop. Ellis Walker Building. The name honored father and son in every sense but blood. He often sat on the stoop, watching the neighborhood, thinking of the man who taught him that a building is more than bricks. In 2034, at 81, Donald passed away in his own apartment, surrounded by the quiet he'd always cherished. He had long ago established a nonprofit to hold the trust. The covenant held 3 units for elders, rent never beyond what a postal worker could afford. New families moved in. The old stove was replaced, but the rule book never changed. This was a home, not a speculation. Donald's name was still on the mailbox. The tenants never removed it. It felt like keeping a promise. The Ellis Walker Building stood not as an investment, but as a promise kept for 2 generations. And somewhere up the street, if you listen, you can still hear the quiet footsteps of a gentle man who never wanted a plaque. He just wanted a home, and he built one for everyone. Morning light touches the brass plaque. Ellis Walker Building. It still gleams, polished by hands that never knew the full story. A new tenant, an elderly woman with a walker, moves into one of the rent-stabilized units. A young volunteer carries her box. She pauses at the plaque, her fingers tracing the name. She doesn't know the history, but she feels welcomed. A child skips past, touches the plaque too, then runs on. The building holds stories it will never tell. The stoop, where Donald once sat, is empty now, but the sun still warms it the same way. Silence. Then the soft echo of footsteps in the hallway. The building never forgot them. Inside, the brass ring of keys still hangs by the door. No one has removed it. It belongs to the house. A tenant waters a plant on the windowsill. A letter carrier passes by and nods. The ordinary carries on. Some buildings are made of brick. This one was built on quiet love, and, as evening falls, the plaque catches the last light. It simply reads, Ellis Walker Building. A promise kept. The brass key ring still hangs on the hook, untouched by time. It never belonged to one person. It belonged to the building. A new tenant, an elderly woman, pauses at the stoop. She doesn't know the story, but she feels the quiet welcome. She touches the plaque gently, then climbs the stairs. The door opens like a promise. Somewhere, a radio plays jazz, and for a moment, the hallway echoes with laughter. The brownstone stands as it always has, not as a fortress, but as a refuge. And if you listen closely on a quiet evening, you might hear footsteps. Not ghosts, just memory. The plaque will weather. The keys will change hands. But the covenant holds, because once, 2 men proved that a building could be more than a transaction. It could be a family, and in the end, that's the quietest kind of heroism. The kind that asks for nothing and lasts forever. Ellis Walker Building. A promise kept.